Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. For those of us that are paying attention, one hell of a lot of things going on right now in the Middle East, globally, Europe, the United States, and a lot of it either directly or at least indirectly affects us as holders of the dinar and some of these other currencies, but particularly the dinar. The revaluation of the IQD from a larger context is just part of the geopolitical and financial realignment, but that's the part that's of most interest to us and is going to have the greatest impact. Now, love him or hate him, Donald Trump is an extremely consequential president, and I think as with the passage of time, that's going to become more obvious. I just want to touch on some of the things he's been involved in, not just in his first term, but when he picked up where he left off with the second term, and again, we're just in the beginning of the second term. With regard to China, he's basically neutralized their practice of currency devaluation in order to corner international trade markets and placed heavy tariffs on their products. The advantage that the United States still continues to have is no other country has a population with expendable income as large as the United States. So the United States is the global customer, and as the saying goes, the customer's always right. So the unfair practices of China, actually it's really upsetting when you think about it, because the United States was the country that sponsored China getting into the World Trade Organization. The first thing China began to do was to try to supplant the United States. So Trump's dropping the hammer on China. And from my perspective, I think that's a good thing. Then there are our allies and friends in Europe who have been making it extremely difficult to establish fair trade programs as well. And the global tariff program that Trump has instituted has forced them to pump the brakes too with some of their nefarious activities. Then we have Russia. Trump sanctioned them with regard to the war in Ukraine. Iran, we'll get into Iran in a little bit more detail, but of course there are already sanctions for Iran. We've just seen the destruction of much of their nuclear weapons capability. That job's not completed, but I think it will be shortly. And the next step, if Iran doesn't play nice, in my opinion, is going to be the destruction of their oil fields. So Iran is basically going to be back where the mullahs want the country anyway, back in the 7th century. And from a global standpoint, that's certainly good. And then, of course, there's Iraq. And courtesy of Donald Trump, we're finally seeing an end of the pro-Iranian officials' corruption. And we're near completion of the reinstitution of Shabibi's monetary reforms. U.S. Treasury now occupies the entire 8th floor of the CBI building. And, of course, the issue we constantly hear is that in order for the Iraqi dinar to reinstitute, they need security and stability. And, of course, there are issues in country with some of the militias, with the parallel market, with some of the activities of Maliki and his crowd, and much of that's been neutralized. But, of course, the other factor was Iran, and I think Iran's been neutralized permanently. This morning, the Ayatollah got on TV, hasn't changed his tone at all, but I don't think it'll be much longer where he'll be able to continue with the charade. The Iranian mullahs are pretty much done. So all of these things lead us back to what we want to see happen, which is the end of the fiat currency system, meaning currencies and countries are based on the quote-unquote full faith and credit of a given government. And we're going to go to sound money, meaning money will be based on the natural resources that a given country has in order to guarantee the value of their currency. Now, we have seen a rise in the so-called BRICS nations. BRICS is an acronym for Brazil, Russia, India, and China. And they're trying to replace the United States as the world's reserve currency. But remember, reserve currency status was much more important in a global fiat system, and we're moving away from that system. Now, obviously, we still want the dollar to be a premier reserve currency, again, the BRICS nations are trying to supplant us. But once again, the wealth of the United States is pretty much untapped. The United States is by far and away the richest country in terms of its natural resources and the ability of that nation to bring those resources to market. There's no country that's even a close second. And the countries that are rich in these natural resources, for the most part, are backward nations. A nation like Afghanistan, they simply do not have the ability to challenge the United States or any other country in terms of extracting those resources, bringing those resources to market, which then backs the value of their currency. So we're in kind of an inflection point right now in the Middle East. But what's going on in Iran? I get a lot of calls and texts from people that have said, I can't believe it. I've had dinar for all these years. We're on the threshold, and then Iran has to do what they're doing. And I would agree that some of the motivation for Iran is they simply do not want to see Iraq out of their little orb. And, of course, the reinstitution and revaluation of the Iraqi dinar globally just sends them into the stratosphere and leaves Iran twiddling its thumbs. But Iran's not going to stop what's happening. And now Iran has pretty much lost the capability to interfere in the interactions of Iraq. And I would argue that at this point, the mullahs better keep their head on a swivel, because if Trump decides to take out their oil fields, they're done. And the people, the good people of Iran, and I know a lot of Iranians who have come to this country because of what happened in Iran, they're very upset with what's going on in Iran. And I think, and I hope that the Iranian regime is in its death throes, and I think that's where we are. But let's concentrate on the Iraqi dinar, because, again, that's why we're all together here. That's what we're most interested in. And just to wrap up what I just said before, in conclusion, the global transition from fiat-based currencies, meaning currencies based by the full faith and credit of given government, has been set aside to an asset-backed system. The technical term for this is Basel compliance. This began in 1988. It was a 5-phase program whereby nations would transition from fiat-based to commodity-backed currencies. Now, the crown jewel of this approach, in my opinion, is Iraq. Iraq, in my opinion, and I've stated it and I've given specific reasons, per square mile, is the richest country in the world. But Iraq was run by a corrupt dictator, Saddam Hussein, and Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait because he wanted, and he was jealous of their wealth. As a result, the United States, with a coalition of forces, expelled Iraq from Kuwait, and as further punishment, put their currency in a program rate, meaning it was basically worthless. So we have a country that arguably is per square mile the richest country in the world, with a currency, due to due to punishment, which is worth next to nothing, in a global environment where currencies are based on the known natural resources of a country. So we come along and decide, you know what? We're going to buy some dinar. It's got to increase in value. The country's a rich country. The devaluation was an artificial punishment. So let's buy the currency. I think we can make some money here. Well, unfortunately, the resurrection of Iraq has taken much, much longer than we had anticipated. However, because it's taken this much time, we've gone through the phases of Basel compliance, a 5-phased program. We currently are in Basel IV. This means that when we go to the bank, and I think we will be going to the bank in the not-too-distant future to exchange our currency, we will take a currency that we purchased at a program rate and exchange it for its Basel IV compliant rate. The result of that is going to be a windfall profit. We've discussed various rates. The Iraqi dinar, when it went into a program rate, was worth $3.22. So it's reasonable to assume that after 20-some years of inflation and the resurrection of the nation-state of Iraq, I think it's conservative to assume that we could go to the bank and get $3.22. That means if you purchased 1 million Iraqi dinars in a program rate for $1,000, you would be able to exchange that for $3.25 million. The currency speculators that I work with tell me that they believe that the Iraqi dinar will fall at about $4.85, which means a $1,000 investment would yield you a gross $4.85 million. Others say it would be even higher. Dr. Shabibi, who instituted the initial monetary reform for Iraq, said that the Iraqi dinar in value should be double-digit to the U.S. dollar. I'd love to see that happen. I personally don't think that that will happen, but I could concede that Dr. Shabibi knows a lot more than I do, so I'm not going to discount it entirely. But I'm just going to stick with the lowest number. If the dinar simply comes back at the rate it was when it went into a program rate, a $1,000 investment into the Iraqi dinar at a program rate would yield $3.25 million. That's a very, very good day at the office. So now we're confronted with the next question. Now that we've received this money, what do we do to protect it, to grow it, and to be able to transfer it to family and friends? And the only way to guarantee that you're protected from civil suit, that you've minimized whatever tax exposure there would be, that you've got your privacy and the ability to transfer this wealth to family and friends, is to establish a family asset protection trust package. Now, I've discussed this in the past, all of the other options you have. LLCs won't do it. Sub-S corporations won't do it. Limited family partnerships won't do it. Revocable trusts won't do it. Single irrevocable trusts won't do it. The only absolute bulletproof asset protection available is a package of irrevocable trusts. And I want to discuss very briefly what those benefits are. First, by establishing such a package, you'll protect your privacy and your anonymity. By establishing your trust pre-RV, in addition to protecting your privacy and your anonymity, you will make it extremely difficult, if not impossible, for anyone to successfully sue you. And frivolous lawsuits are absolutely out of the question, because the gauntlet that an individual would have to go through in time and money would be absurd. Remember, your assets are in trust. They have no idea what's in that trust. Is it $20 million in there, or is there 20 cents in there? They don't know. And who's going to spend thousands of dollars to find out? Second benefit, you're going to avoid IRS scrutiny. By establishing your trust pre-RV, you will significantly avoid the possibility of an IRS audit, and any such trust audit would necessarily be confined to the year in which the RV occurs, as there's no taxable event prior to the RV, so you don't have a problem with the IRS. The third benefit, you're going to avoid gift taxes and pre-RV gifting. By gifting pre-RV currencies to friends and family through the trust rather than directly, you will avoid any federal gift tax and simultaneously control the post-RV windfall. Now, this could be very important if you're gifting currencies to children, to disabled individuals, or simply individuals that you think for whatever reason are going to be wholly incapable of managing a substantial amount of money. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust is because it's going to allow you to avoid the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. Again, your trust will allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate, making any inheritance immediately available to your heirs. It will also allow you to avoid the federal estate tax, which can be as much as 55% of the estate in excess of $12 million. This means that there will be no probate, there will be no public disclosure of your estate. Your heirs will receive 100 cents on a dollar of their respective inheritance, and no one will know it. And the fifth reason is what I like to refer to as preemptive asset protection. By placing your pre-RV currencies in trust, only the value of those currencies at the time of the transfer would ever be subject to a civil suit. Meaning, if you purchase 10 million dinar for $10,000, transfer the currencies to our trust. Irrespective of what they're worth post-RV in trust, you could only be personally sued for $10,000 because that's all the currencies were worth when you transferred them out of title and under the law out of direct control. And by placing each individual asset that you subsequently purchase, homes, cars, boats, etc., in the several sub-trusts within the package, you limit any potential future lawsuit post-RV to those individual assets. If someone slips and is injured in one of your rental properties, if you're in a car accident, it's your fault, things of that nature, only that asset would be involved in the litigation because all of the other assets are in separate sub-trusts, which under the law are separate legal entities not involved in the litigation in question. So purchasing the currencies was a very good idea. Patiently holding on to those currencies and perhaps even increasing the amount of currencies you purchased was another good idea. That was a little harder to do. Establishing a trust to ensure that no one knows what you possess, no one can take it from you or from your family, is the last and final phase. And that's what we accomplish with the establishment of your trust. Now, our trust package is initially a package. As a matter of fact, before I get into that, I'm going to go ahead and open our Q&A, and then I'll explain a little bit how the trust works while individuals that might have questions sign in here. Okay. As I said, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold financial assets like savings accounts, investment accounts, checking accounts, things of that nature. One optional gift subtrust if you wish to give currencies to family and friends pre-RV and control the post-RV proceeds, and then 8 additional standard subtrusts to hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But when we decided to work with dinarians, we knew that the vast majority of them were not going to be able to afford the cost of that package, nor would they need to utilize it until after the revaluation. So by mass marketing the trust, we've been able to reduce the cost to $2,500. Contact us. We'll be happy to send you our initial trust package. It does contain everything you need if you wish to proceed with the establishment of your trust package, but you're under no obligation to do so. You can review the package, contact us if you have any questions. If you then decide you want to proceed with the establishment of your family asset protection trust, again, everything you need is included in the package. You'll submit your fee and your application. It will immediately go to our paralegals. Within a week, you should receive your initial trust package with instructions as to all of the things you need to do, the signatures, etc., to make sure two things are done. The trust is legally enforced pre-RV, and all of your currencies have been legally assigned to the trust pre-RV. Once that's done, there's literally nothing else for you to do until you go to the bank. Among the supplemental documents in the package is the exchange protocol if you have a trust. It walks through exactly the do's and don'ts, what you say and what you don't say when you go to the bank to do your exchange and you have a trust. The process is exactly the same as it would be if you didn't have a trust, with one change. After you've negotiated the exchange of the currency, rather than going in a personal account, which of course means you're on the grid, everyone knows who you are, what you possess, and you can be easily sued. Instead, the money, the USD, will go into the trust bank account, master trust bank account that will be established that day at that bank. So you are not in constructive receipt of the post-RV proceeds. The trust is. You're the beneficiary of the trust. So you still have the same benefits, but this time with the protections afforded only through such a trust package. Okay, let's go to the Q&A here. Our first caller is area code 347. That's 347. Go ahead.
Okay, this is from Frank Gunter. He said that I'm sorry, this is Praveen from New York. This is from Frank Gunter. He said the Iraqi private sector confronts significant obstacles that must be addressed to unlock the country's economic potential. So just clarifies my...
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
He said, this clarifies my analysis that Iraq is simply not ready for monetary policy changes or economic revamping. There will be an RV. There will not be an RV anytime soon, but it will happen. So do you agree with that assessment?
Well, I agree half of what he's saying. There definitely will be an RV. The reason I think it will be sooner rather than later is because President Trump is pushing to get this done, and the guy just gets things done. So that's where I think we are. And I think another reason he's dropping the hammer on Iran is precisely because he wants to make sure that he gets this done in Iraq. And he knows that Iran has been the problem and has done everything they can to postpone, if not stop, the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. So, yes, I mean, no one's going to give you a date and a rate, and I'm not certainly going to either. But in my opinion, everything's moving inextricably in that position. Now, if Biden had won re-election, then I'd be telling a completely different story. But that's not who's in charge here. Donald Trump is an absolute rainmaker, and he wants to see the Iraqi dinar reinstituted. Remember, the U.S. Treasury holds 4 trillion dinar. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this occurs. But he's just a deal maker, and he works 24/7. I wouldn't be surprised if the Trump family were substantial dinarians too, so that would probably be a personal motivation as well. So there's always going to be people.
Yeah. Yeah, you're saying? I'm sorry. You were saying?
No, I was just saying, again, he just gets things done, and it's, in my opinion, this is on his short list of things he wants to see get done. I'll tell you also what I think he wants to see get done is the reinstitution, revaluation of the Vietnamese dong, because Vietnam has finally started to break out Chinese umbrella and starting to negotiate its own trades with other countries. China actually is in a lot of trouble financially. China's got problems. Communist nations' economic models are crap, and they just don't work. And China's finding that out the hard way. So, obviously, I'm a product of wishful thinking. I want to see it get done, but the way I ask it is, what are the impediments? And I just don't see an impediment that's going to prolong this for very long, with the possible exception of some of the pro-Iranian officials in Iraq, and they're being rounded up. As a matter of fact, they arrested Maliki. After all these years, they've arrested Maliki, and he's the head of the snake. So, I think the momentum's on the side of the reinstitution.
Okay, now this is about the Israeli-Iran war. Now, if the U.S. actively joins the war, then you may have other nuclear-armed nations join, like Russia, China, or Pakistan. Now, if that leads to a nuclear, exchange, you think they will think that's going to lead to a nuclear exchange?
No, because I think Trump actually has good relationships with those leaders, and I think they're all agreed that the nuclear is not the way to go.
Okay. The thing is, see, what Iraq should do, or Jordan, they should shut off their airspace, because the missiles is not good. They have missiles going back and forth through their airspace. So that doesn't help matters in getting security.
No, it doesn't. But I just think that Trump is going to deal with all these people. He keeps saying he wants peace, and I think he's going to accomplish it. But unfortunately, the way it's going to be accomplished is going to require the downfall of the Iranian mullahs. As a matter of fact, the Ayatollah was on TV today, and the threats he were making, he does not live in the real world. The things he was saying are impossible. He's talking about the destruction of the United States, and he's got Israel, roughly the size of the state of Delaware, that's kicking his butt. So, I think Trump's got everything under control, and once he gets Iran neutered, I think the dinar is going. And remember, there's half a dozen other countries that are waiting on the Iraqi dinar, and the whole planet is transitioning to Basel compliant commodity-backed currencies, and they're not going to stop this movement because Iran decides that they want Iraq or they don't like Israel. I just don't think that's going to. I don't think that's going to be a reality. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye now. Our next caller is area code 281. That's 281. Go ahead.
Hi, Jim. This is Robert from Texas. How are you doing on this amazing day?
It is an amazing day. I'm doing well, and I'm hopeful that this will all be over soon.
Yeah, I am as well. Listen, I just have one question for you concerning our trust package. I'd like to know if you can state how difficult, once funds are deposited in the trust, right? How difficult and how fast would it be to withdraw funds from the trust to obtain other assets, products and things like that, such as houses, cars, investments, and things of that nature?
Now, remember, you have named a third-party trustee. The reason you've named a third-party trustee is because under the law, that's what's required in order for you to enjoy the privacy and the asset protection. In other words, when you have direct ownership, the ability to buy, sell, use, consume, or destroy, then you forfeit your privacy and your anonymity. You've transferred that to your trustee. The difference is this. Rather than going to an institution, utilizing their trust and having them as the trustee, you've created what's called a self-settled trust. In other words, you established the trust through us, a private firm, and we created the trust in a way that you could name your own trustee, and you can replace that trustee if you're unhappy with them. So Let's say you go to the bank, you have 10 million dinar, you get $1 for it, you now have $10 million in the master trust bank account. Well, you call your trustee and say, look, I'm going to purchase a car, or I'm going to purchase a home, or I'm going to purchase a boat. We need to meet on such and such a day and do the transaction. Another thing you can do with your trustee is you could call your trustee, for example, and say, well, my expenses every month are approximately $7,500 a month. So I want you to automatically transfer on the first day of each month $10,000 from my trust bank account to my personal account. And then, of course, you can write checks, use your ATM card, whatever. So you're going to have complete and total liquidity. And the only possible problem you would have is if your trustee, for some inexplicable reason, chooses not to honor your request, at which point you just replace the trustee.
Right. Well, that I understand. I just want to know how difficult or how fast would it be for the trustee to be able to make those arrangements? You send the trustee an email saying, I would like $5,000 transferred to my personal account. He makes the transfer. Okay. It's just as simple as that.
In other words, instead of you making the transfer, you send him an email telling him to do it, and he'll do it.
Okay. And if we needed to get homes purchased right away, that trustee, he could ensure that happens by, providing us with the cashier's check or whatever purchase item was needed.
What would happen is you would set up a closing date, and he would be there with whatever financial instrument he needed to conclude the transaction.
Wow. Okay. So that trustee is really he's got to be that has got to be a high-powered individual like myself. They really need to know what they're doing, and we really have.
Well, it really needs to be someone you trust, which is hence the term trustee.
Yeah. Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. But what's important, what's different about this trust, and this is an important point, is you get to select a trustee, and if you're not happy with them, you can replace them at any time and for any reason. So at the end of the day, you end up with control, but you had to thread the needle of having a third-party trustee for the privacy and the asset protection.
Okay, I understand that, Jim, and I'm going to ask you just one more question, okay? We're going to have the majority of the funds in the trust. Would it be okay to have, a little bit in a regular account? I mean, we're going to pay taxes, I get that, but it wouldn't be a big deal to have, say, I don't know, just a couple million or whatever in a regular account.
Well, why would you want to do that? You don't have a liquidity problem in trust. Why would you want anyone to know you have it? Or why would you want to expose it to litigation or a slightly higher tax implication? Why would you want to do that?
Well,
you can do whatever you want. I'm just asking you the question. Why would you want to do that? Because you put it in the trust. If you decide you need $2 million, you pick up the phone, you get $2 million.
Got it. I was thinking about easeability. Just wanted to make sure, because, many people, this is a life-changing event. We're going to have to do some things right away. We got to get, a couple homes, for children and stuff like that. And we just didn't want any issues. So we were thinking about just having it, in a regular account, but what you're saying about
let's say right after the RV, you went out and you said, I want to buy this $1 million house, and I'm going to close on it in 2 weeks. You call your trustee. You'll have the money transferred to whatever account you want, and plenty of time. If you want to do it that way, you could. There's no advantage to putting it in a personal account, other than your lack of experience with the trust makes you feel more comfortable, but it doesn't change anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you would recommend just putting everything in a trust, let the trustee do what you dictate that they need to do for your benefit, correct?
Right. Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And the other issue is this. I promise you, if $2 million is sitting in your bank account, you will be contacted by 25 individuals selling something, promoting something, offering something, because you're on the grid. If it's in the trust, you're not. You operate with your Social Security number. The trust operates with an EIN number. And because it's an irrevocable trust, no one has a right to know what's in it without going to a court and showing cause.
Got it. Jim, I appreciate you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate
it. Yes, sir. Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Our next caller is area code, let's see, did I lose? 804. That's 804. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Jim. How are you, sir?
Okay. How are you doing?
This is Randall from Virginia.
Yes, sir.
So I wanted to ask you a question. You mentioned EIN numbers. Does your main subtrust for sure will have an EIN number? What about the subtrust? Do they need to have EIN numbers as well?
No. You only need EIN numbers for the master trust, and if you have it, the gift subtrust. And the reason you need the EIN number for the gift subtrust is because that's the one trust in the package where you are the trustee. Under the master trust, and then the other normal subtrusts which operate through the master trust, your trustee, of course, is the named trustee. But in the gift subtrust, you are the trustee because you're managing that money for your friends and family. So you need an EIN number for the master trust, which incorporates all the other subtrusts, and then you need an EIN for the gift subtrust. So the most you need is 2, and if you don't have the gift subtrust, you only need 1 EIN.
Okay. Thank you, sir. You have a good day, and we're looking forward to something happening soon.
Absolutely. Thanks very much for your call. Bye-bye now. Okay, our next caller is area code 509. That's 509. Go ahead.
Well, hi, Jim. This is Art out on the left coast of Washington State.
Yes, sir.
We haven't fallen off into the ocean yet, but maybe Seattle will. I don't know.
Well, then once this happens, just move.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm on the east side, so I'm good.
Oh, you're good. Yeah, you might be.
Yeah. Anyway, that'll increase the value of the property. That'd be good.
Right.
Say, just for what it's worth, it's 21 years. 21 years since boots on the ground and in Iraq from the initial phase. So it's pretty amazing how time flies.
Yeah.
But had a question in reference to the gift subtrust. If you have with the gift subtrust and you have several different individuals that you have identified in gifting of currencies, you have to give, you have to have a checking account for each one of those individuals in reference to that amount that you've gifted them that's in the gift subtrust, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So you need a repository for the gift.
Well, the thing is, I didn't realize that. I was thinking it was just one checking account, and all those individuals were listed on the gift subtrust. What we've done, and we have that notarized and what have you, and then you just write one check, a check out of that account to those individuals. So if you have 2 or 3 individuals that you've gifted 5,000 dinar, to be able to substantiate that, you'd have to have a checking account at the bank in their name so that you could write a check, correct?
Let me write through this. Let me walk through this for you. Let's say you establish your gift subtrust. One of the documents that will be included in that gift subtrust is the gift subtrust gifting letter. And in that letter, it will itemize who you're gifting and how much of each currency. Not a dollar amount, how much of each currency. Right. So let's say you have your 3 recipients, and you give each one of them 500,000 dinar. You go to the bank, and you get $1 for your dinar. I just use $1 for simplicity. That means you're gifting these 3 individuals each $500,000. If you go through our exchange protocol, you won't even take the gift sub-trust with you because you're not doing anything with that, and you're just going to confuse the bank. You're going to go, you're going to exchange your currency. The USD will then go into the master trust bank account that will be established at that day at the point of exchange. A couple of weeks later, when that money's available to you, and it should be available sooner than that, but I'm just saying a couple of weeks, you go back to the bank with your gift sub-trust and your gifting letter, and you establish the 3 bank accounts for the 3 recipients, and you transfer $500,000 directly into each of their 3 bank accounts, which will then be managed by you as the trustee of the gift sub-trust. Now, at that point, you might, transfer some of it to investment accounts. You might use some of it as down payments to purchase a home for, whatever you're going to want to do. But that's the way it'll work. You'll negotiate your exchange. It'll go into your master trust bank account. You'll go back to the bank in 10 days, 2 weeks later to create with a copy of your gift sub-trust to create bank accounts for the recipients, transfer the money, and then you're good to go, and you'll just manage it on a post-RV basis.
Right. I understand all that. The thing is, I guess the question is if you've given or gifted in a gift letter someone 5,000 dinar, for example, would it really be reasonable to go in at the same time you're establishing checking accounts or whatever for those 3 or 4 individuals?
If you want problems with it, I've been working with banks for 40 years. The less they need to know, the better. If you go in there and try to do 5 negotiations instead of 1, and the bank's probably going to roll their eyes anyway because they're interested in exchanging the guy behind you, not moving your money around that day. I wouldn't even take the gift sub-trust with me. Now, if you want to complicate your life, by all means, do it your way. I'm just giving you good advice. Don't do it.
I'm not saying, Jim, I'm not saying going in at the time of the RV and doing all this. I follow with going back. Well, then we're on the same page. We're on the same page. Yeah. Well, so I guess where I'm pole vaulting over that mouse turd is that with an individual, 2 or 3 individuals that you have gifted them 5,000 dinar, and let's say it goes to $5, that's 25,000 that they would have available that you would give to them. You'd have to create a checking account for that individual for that amount for each one later, following the RV, correct? Is that what
That's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when you go to the bank, when you go to the bank to do your exchange, you do not take the gift sub-trust with you or anything about it.
Correct.
You go in, negotiate your exchange. All of the USD will then go into your master trust bank account. You will then go back to the bank later when that money's available. Once the bank knows that you can walk in there and take all your money out of the bank, then they're going to be much more cooperative, saying, now I have this other sub-trust, now I have these recipients, now I want to set up accounts for each of them, now I want money transferred. You're going to get a lot more done by waiting 10 days, 2 weeks, and going back and doing that. And that goes for just about anything you're doing. I call it the Jed Clampett effect. Once the bank knows you can take your money and go somewhere else, they're going to be much more cooperative with you. Again, I'm giving you this advice based on my years of experience working with banks.
No, I understand all that, and I'm following, I'm tracking with you and agree totally. But
well, then we're
my question is, I guess, that for an individual, it'd be the same thing for someone who has 500,000 dinar that you're gifting, and you could do that for someone that has 5,000.
Yes, same thing. As long as the USD to cover that transaction's in your account, they don't care. It's staying in their bank. There's no problem.
Gotcha. Okay, I gotcha. I just, like I say, I was pole vaulting over that, and I go, it didn't make sense, but it does, in essence. One thing that I've realized as well, if you were to go out, following the RV, and you have the money in your account, and you decide, okay, I'm going to go and look at some property to possibly move, and a lot of these properties anymore, especially in the country, you're going to be looking at over $1 million. And to be able to go and even look at that property, you're going to have a memorandum of some sort from the bank, that is from the trustee, that reflects that there is plenty of money to be able to purchase this land. So
I think you're looking for trouble here. If you have $25 million sitting in your trust bank account and you want to buy a $3 million home, you go and you look at the $3 million home and you act like you can afford to pay for that home. At some point, if they want confirmation that you have the money, you and or your trustee can just simply let them know that you have the money. If they don't, it shouldn't be a problem at all.
It depends on, remember that we're in Washington State. Washington State banking, what have you, are tighter than a bull's butt at fly time. So to be able to go and look at properties, they virtually will require you to have a certification from the bank that, or approval of a loan for this up to X amount, to be able to demonstrate they'll even let you go and look.
You're thinking like somebody that doesn't have $25 million in their bank account.
No.
Okay, you're not going to.
I don't.
You're stuck in the weeds. You're not going to have a problem purchasing a $3 million home if you have $25 million. Trust me, you're not going to have a problem. The bank's not going to have a problem. The lender's not going to have a problem if you want to involve a loan. The seller's not going to have a problem. If the money's in the account, you could write a check for $3 million, and it'll be cleared in 3 days. So you're just not going to have a problem.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm just saying that here, it's a little bit. There's more wrinkles involved. Let's put it that way.
Well,
so it's just a matter of having a certification, a letter from, whatever. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Like I say, I don't want to.
I mean, if it were me, this is what I would do. This is what I would do, and then I got to go. But this is what I would do. I'd call the bank. I'd put it on speakerphone, and I'd say, "Hey, this is Jim George." I'd give all the identifying information. I'm thinking about writing a check for $3 million. Is that much available in my account? Yes or no? Then you're done. It's not going to be complicated.
What it would be the trustee that would be doing that.
Whomever. My point is, if you're making a $3 million purchase and you have $25 million in the bank, you don't have a problem. Don't look for one.
Okay.
All right.
I'm not looking for one. It just whatever.
Yes, you are.
This is what's being told to me, Jim. No.
Okay. Well,
Jim,
this
is what I've been told by people who I've talked to about here, in Washington State.
No,
so,
I do know.
Anyway, thank you. I love listening.
I do know your state is a blue state, and I know that can be problematic with issues like this. But this is just basically common sense. If something costs 3 pennies and you have 25 pennies, it's not. There's no problem. Okay.
Roger out. All righty.
Okay. All right.
Take care, brother.
Take care now. All right. Bye-bye. This is what happens to a lot of us. We're used to looking at things from a different perspective. If you've got 10 times the money in the account that you need to do a given transaction, you're not going to have a problem. And if you do, you deem to not do that transaction with that group of individuals. But anyway, that was our last caller for today. Again, thanks so much for listening to our call. Our next call will be scheduled for next week, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Certainly, if something of dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. Failing that, again, we'll be back next Wednesday. The things we discussed are of interest. Contact us by phone or email, and we'll be happy to get our trust package out to you, but do not tarry because time, I think, could be short. Our email address is trusts with an S, Unlimited LLC at gmail.com. That's trusts with an S, Unlimited LLC at gmail.com. And our phone service is 307-274-4122. That's 307-274-4122. Contact us by email or phone. You should have your initial trust package within 48 hours. You'll have my direct line if you have any questions. And if you submit your application in fee, I will personally husband it right through to our paralegals because I know time could be of interest and or of importance. Again, thanks so much for listening. Have a great week, everyone. God bless. Bye-bye now.